So again, welcome to our Veterans Day, welcome to our day. And now the Veterans Day proclamations for the President of the United States and the Governor of New Mexico, read to us by FCCLA members Autumn Archuleta and Brianna Marquez.
By the President of the United States of America, Veterans Day 2013, a proclamation. On Veterans Day, America pauses to honor every service member who has ever worn one of our nation's uniforms. Each time our country has come under attack, they have risen in her defense. Each time our freedoms have come under assault, they have responded with resolve. Through the generations, their courage and sacrifice have allowed our republic to flourish. And today, a nation acknowledges its profound debt of gratitude to the patriots who have kept it whole. As we pay tribute to our veterans, we are mindful that no ceremony or parade can fully repay that debt. We remember that our obligations endure long after the battle ends, and we make it our mission to give them the respect and care that they have earned. When American veterans return home, they continue to serve our country in new ways, bringing tremendous skills to their communities and to the workforce. Leadership owned while guiding platoons through unbelievable danger. The talent to master cutting-edge technologies. The ability to adapt to unpredictable situations. These men and women should have the chance to power our economic engine, both because their talents demand it and because no one who fights for our country should have to fight for a job. This year, marking the 60th anniversary of the Korean War armistice, we resolve that in the United States of America, no war should ever be forgotten, and no veteran should be overlooked. Let us always remember our wounded, our missing, our fallen, and their families. And as we continue our responsible drawdown from the war in Afghanistan, let us welcome our returning heroes with the support and opportunities that they deserve. Under the most demanding of circumstances and in the most dangerous corners of the earth, Americans' veterans have served with distinction, with courage, self-sacrifice, and devotion to our nation and to one another. They represent the American character at its best. On Veterans Day and every day, we celebrate their immeasurable contributions, draw inspiration from their example, and renew our commitment to showing them the fullest support of our grateful nation. With respect for and in recognition of the contributions our service members have made to the cause of peace and freedom around the world, the Congress has provided 5 U.S.C. 61038 that November 11th of each year shall be set aside as a legal public holiday to honor our nation's veterans. Now therefore, I, Barack Obama, President of the United States of America, do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2013 as Veterans Day. I encourage all Americans to participate in appropriate public ceremonies and private prayers. I call upon federal, state, local, and officials to display the flag of the United States and to participate in patriotic activities in their community. I call on all Americans, including civic, fraternal organizations, places of worship, schools, and communities to support this day with commemorative expressions and programs. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand this 5th day of November in the year of our Lord 2013, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 238th. Barack Obama.
State of New Mexico, Executive Office, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Proclamation. Whereas our great nation was founded on the belief that all Americans are created equal, and that all Americans are guaranteed the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas the freedoms we enjoy as Americans do not come without a price. Our nation's veterans have sacrificed to preserve and protect our country and Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And whereas on November 11, 1919, this day was initially proclaimed as Armistice Day to honor our country's World War I veterans. It was the one-year anniversary of the Armistice in Compiègne, the historic agreement which brought an end to the war on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. And whereas in 1954, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed legislation which proclaimed every November 11th as a day to honor all veterans of the United States Armed Forces, establishing this as a national day to thank these men and women for their service to our country. Now therefore, I, Susana Martinez, Governor of the State of New Mexico, do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2013 as Veterans Day. Throughout the state of New Mexico, I urge all New Mexicans to thank all veterans for their sacrifice and service to our country. I also ask that we pray for the safe return of service members currently serving abroad. I ask that we will remember those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, losing their lives on the battlefield, and to keep in our thoughts and prayers those who remain missing in action, and to never rest until they come home. Signed at the Executive Office this first day of November, 2013. Witness my hand and the Great Seal of the State of New Mexico. Signed, Susana Martinez, Governor.
In honor of Veterans Day, we'd like to present a few select readings. Our first reading is How We Recall by Richard Robichaud, read to us by Student Council Member Hallie Medina.
How We Recall by Roger Robichaud. How we recall that day we swore to serve our country to the core. That clothing issue brought a view of raw recruits that showed so true. Remembered hair was cut away, this look for quite a while would stay. Our check before too long did show, new GIs marching, row by row. And then one day emerged a form, each proud, trained troop in uniform. We followed orders as we should, to do our best in pride we would. Some served in peace, some went to war, brave heroes passed through heaven's door. We cherished friends who served with us, great buddies all, how we discuss. So many thoughts will never wane, for what we share let closeness reign. Our bond was tight, the best to see, for when we served, this had to be. Their purpose was to keep you free. God bless the brave, deservedly.
Thank you, Hallie. Our second reading is Veterans Day by Cheryl Dodson, read to us by Student Council Member Brittany Fleming.
Veterans Day by Cheryl Dyson. On Veterans Day, we honor all who answer to a service call. Soldiers young and soldiers old fought for freedom, brave and bold. Some have lived while others died. All of them deserve our pride. We're proud of the soldiers who kept thinking of the red, white, and blue. They fought for us and all our rights. They fought through many days and nights. And though we may not know each by name, we thank all veterans just the same.
Our final reading is from I Am a Veteran by Andrea C. Brett, read to us by Student Council Member Sydney Silva.
From I Am a Veteran by Andrea C. Brett. You may not know me the first time we meet, I'm just another you see on the street. But I am the reason you walk and breathe free. I am the reason for your liberty. I am a veteran. I work in the local factory all day. I own the restaurant just down the way. I sell your insurance. I start your IV. I've got the best looking grandkids you'll ever see. I'm your grocer, your baker, your child's school teacher. I'm your plumber, your barber, and your family's preacher. But there's a part of me you don't know very well. Just listen a moment, I've got a story to tell. I am a veteran. I served on the battlefront, I served on the base. I bound up the wounded and begged for God's grace. I gave orders to fire, I followed commands. I marched into conflict in far distant lands. In the jungle, the desert, on mountains and shores, in bunkers, in tents, and on dangerous floors. While I fought on the ground, in the air, on the sea. My family and friends were home praying for me. For the land of the free and the home of the brave, I faced my demons in foxholes and caves. Then one dreaded day, without jammer or fight, I lost an arm, my buddy lost his life. I'm a part of a fellowship, a strong mighty band, of each man and each woman who have served this great land. And when Old Glory waves, I stand proud, I stand tall. I helped keep her flying over you, over all. I am a veteran.
Thank you, Sydney. All right, today's guest speaker, I am honored to give to you today. He has spent 21 years in the United States Marine Corps. He entered in 1961. He was a veteran of the Vietnam conflict. He did 3 tours in Vietnam. He was a helicopter gunner and then later a mechanic on helicopters working on the communication and navigation systems of those helicopters. He exited the service in 1981 to civilian life. I would like you to please give a warm RMS welcome to Mr. Bert Goodfellow.
In appreciation for short people, I really accept this podium to stand on. Not go away. Not go away. I suppose you're all wondering what this short, fat man can tell you about being a veteran and how I feel about it. In order for you to understand some of the things I'm going to tell you, I have to give you a little bit of my background. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, of Canadian parents, but I grew up in the province of Ontario until I was 20 years old when I crossed the border, Buffalo, New York, and joined the United States Marine Corps, and I found a home. I don't know what it was about the Marine Corps for several years that enticed me to stay, but I know that one of my saddest moments is when I got out, and I lost a lot of the friendship and camaraderie that the service will give you. The service is a very organized institution that you have someone there that cares about your general welfare all the time, whether you like it or whether you don't like it. You have a commanding officer that cares about you. You have a sergeant major that cares about you, or a first sergeant, or a chaplain, or a doctor. And I didn't quite find that when I decided to retire and enter into civilian work. As I was growing up in Canada, a lot of my relatives, a lot of my friends would tell me what it meant to me and how lucky I was to have an American birth certificate. That I was an American. I heard that all my life. And so naturally I had to cross the border and I had to find out what it meant to me to be an American citizen. My service career is nothing more than what millions of other people have contributed to this great country of ours. But like the saying goes, somebody had to do it. I volunteered to go to Vietnam my first tour. I darn sure didn't do it the second and third time. A lot of good American souls were lost in that war just like every other war. I probably learned my patriotism in Canada, what it meant to believe in your country. But there was something missing, and I try to talk about that every opportunity I get to be in front of young people. Because sometimes I think some of my thoughts have been here, they were in other people, they no longer exist. And it's time we brought them back. Excuse me for just a moment. What is this? The flag. You're right. It's my flag. These pieces of cloth sewn together represent our history. Didn't start out looking like this. 13 stars and 13 stripes. But as our country grew, so did the number of stars on the flag increase. We had a period of time in our history when this flag was fought over. During the Civil War, we never knew whether it was going to maintain its shape and color, but it did. Tattered and torn, battle-worn. Bought with the blood of many, many good men on both sides of that conflict. This flag represents your history. It represents what we are as an American people. What we have given to the world. Let us not destroy it. Let's not dishonor it. It belongs to you and me, everyday citizens. This flag is us. It is part of us. I grew up in a country that didn't have the flag until I was 26 years old. They had to borrow one from somewhere else. This flag, I've seen it flown on the great American warships that I've been aboard. I've seen it flown at the embassies, at schoolyards, in municipal buildings. People fly it out in front of their homes, like mine is this morning. This flag has been bought at a tremendous price. It is not just my flag. I tell people it's mine, and it is close to me. But I want it to be your flag. I want you to be proud. Thank you.
Mr. Goodfellow, on behalf of the students and staff of Raton Middle School, please accept this plaque as a token of appreciation for your service and for sharing your time with us today. And now I'd like to present Senator Martin Heinrich's Field Representative Andrew D. Black.
morning. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you here this morning. My name is Andrew Black, and I'm a field representative for U.S. Senator Martin Heinrich. Veterans Day and veterans are an issue that's near and dear to my heart. So I come from a long line of veterans, but also at the same time, in this community, I also cover education issues in all of Colfax County. And many of you may remember some of the work that I did with Senator Bingaman previously and Senator Heinrich continuing that work to try to expand the Raton Veterans Clinic. That's something that I've been spending about 5 years of my life on, and I know it's really important to you all, and so I'm honored to be here today and chose specifically to come to Raton because it's a community that's near and dear to my heart and cares a lot about its veterans. I'd like to begin first by recognizing those who are veterans in our crowd. If you can stand up if you're able, if not, just raise your hand. Please rise if you're veterans. Thank you for your service and welcome home. I also want to have a show of hands of how many of you have a veteran in your family or are connected to a veteran. I also really want to thank you. As you all know, and the veterans also recognize, the support of families and friends is really critical, not only to your time when you're overseas or maybe in combat, but also at the same time to when you return and to find ways to adjust back to civilian life. So thank you for all of the family members for your continued support of our veterans. I'd like to formally begin by just reading a brief statement from U.S. Senator Martin Heinrich, and here's the Senator's words today. On Veterans Day, communities in New Mexico and around the country come together to honor our brave veterans, service members, and fallen heroes who have given their lives for the cause of freedom. Millions of veterans across the country, including more than 170,000 veterans here in New Mexico, have defended our nation with extraordinary courage and unparalleled distinction. The tradition of answering the call of duty runs deep in New Mexico's history. Many times our state has had the highest rate of military volunteerism in our country. And so it is my obligation as your U.S. Senator to ensure that our veterans have the best community clinics available to them. One of my highest priorities is to work with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs to strengthen healthcare services and fix chronic infrastructure problems here in New Mexico's clinics. I'm pleased to report that we are making significant progress in this area. In March, we opened a new VA clinic in Farmington, and in July, we broke ground on the new upgraded clinic here in Raton. And we anticipate also a new and expanded VA clinic in Santa Fe as well. While I'm encouraged by these developments, I also remain steadfast in my efforts to ensure that every veteran in New Mexico has access to the best quality care that they need and they deserve. So on this day, let us reaffirm our promise to our returning troops and their families. And remember that our commitments to those who have served are commitments that we must not only honor on Veterans Day, but on all of the days of the year. It is an honor and a privilege to serve you here in the United States Senate. Sincerely, Martin Heinrich, United States Senate. Thank you.
And now, This Is My Country, sang by the RMS Choir, directed by Carrie Hutchinson.
East or west,
Veterans, please do an about face and be recognized by our student body, please. Let's give a big round of applause. Veterans, after the colors are retired.
The assembly today, and a special thanks to the young Marines that are here. I would also like to give a special thank you to all of the veterans for coming. Without your service, we wouldn't be here today, and it really means a lot to us. So if you could all please stand for the national anthem.
Good morning. My name is Eric Friedel. I serve as principal here at Raton High School, and I couldn't be more honored than to be able to host men and women of the armed forces today. Before I begin, what I want to do is I want to let students know that there's a reason we celebrate today. In 1918, World War I came to an end. And with the ending of hostilities between the Germans and the Allies, we signed an agreement that said we would be at peace. And that agreement was called an armistice. And originally this day was known as Armistice Day. It was always celebrated on the 11th month, on the 11th day, at 11 a.m. And that's where we are right now. 95 years ago, the armistice was signed for World War I, the war to end all wars. And since that time, Americans have been called from every walk of life to stand and execute what our military has to do. And they do it in so many different ways. We live in a country where we feel relatively safe. So we don't worry about a lot of what goes on. And that's because we have members of our armed forces out there in the world in the most horrific conditions, keeping us safe. We have with us today veterans who have served this country, and we are here to honor them. And we are so proud they have chosen to spend their time with us. And we have members here who have served in every war since. World War II, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Operation Enduring Freedom, and so many other conflicts where our military was called to task and went in and did what they could do to make someone else's country as safe as ours and to protect our country from that incursion. So that's why we're here today, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to celebrate the selfless efforts of those who give for us. Many of you students here probably have stories about grandfathers and fathers who were involved. My story is, I had a father who served in the Navy, the Army, and the Air Force. He entered his service in December of 1941, 2 weeks after Pearl Harbor. And so, all of us have been touched by our armed forces and their commitment to our country. Today, we are fortunate enough to have a retired colonel who served our country with honor and dignity. And he's going to speak to us a little bit about that. So I would ask for your kind attention to his presentation at this time. It's my pleasure, my honor, to introduce to you Colonel San Roman, retired.
Good morning, students, staff, administration, and honored veterans. I am truly honored to be speaking to you today, Veterans Day 2013. I am writing this to honor our veterans on this Veterans Day. I have given much thought to the issue of Veterans Day, originally known as Armistice Day. It was a day to remember the ending of World War I, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the date and time that World War I came to an end. It was later changed to Veterans Day to honor all veterans of all wars. These men and women who put their lives on hold and went into the service to fight for our nation in times of war and conflict. Did you get that? Men and women who put their lives on hold to serve their country in a time of war. Veterans are service members who write a blank check to the nation stating that they will pay any price up to and including giving their lives in defense of this country. Seniors, I was sitting right where you are today, 43 years ago. My country was involved in the war in Vietnam, a very unpopular war back here in the United States. But I felt it was my duty to serve my country. I enlisted in the United States Air Force and left the same night I graduated, 17 years old. 36 and a half years later, I retired from military service on this very day in 2007. Veterans have had a major influence in my life. Being a second-generation American on my father's side, I grew up knowing my father and all his brothers, sons of naturalized parents from Spain and Mexico, first-generation American, 7 sons who all served in the armed forces. Many of my teachers and principals, while I was growing up, were veterans and taught me the importance of patriotism, honor, and duty. Having spent 36 and a half years in uniforms and having risen through the ranks from airman basic to colonel, it has left its mark on me. Having done 3 consecutive combat tours in Vietnam and Southeast Asia, I know full well the price of freedom, the horrors of war, and the undying sacrifice servicemen and women give for their fellow comrades in arms. From the first shots at Bunker Hill to our presence in Afghanistan and Iraq today, America's veterans have laid their lives on the line for our freedoms. They have fought and died in battles all over the world and in its oceans. The men and women still, to this day, join the armed forces, speaks highly of our nation's ideals. They have fled and died for freedom, our freedom, and the freedom of millions all over the globe. They have never asked for more than their government promised. Many returned with physical wounds, many more with the less obvious mental wounds, and many more to be laid to rest in hallowed ground. Raton and New Mexico has a rich history of veterans and sending men and women to war. We now have a statue dedicated to those who left their families to serve their country in Victory Park. At this time, I would like to talk about a few veterans in our community. I will begin with those of World War II, as all the World War I veterans are gone. There is my friend, who is a retired wholesale grocer and a truck driver. who now loves to work in his garden. But as a young man, he was a ball tourist belly gunner in a B-17, dodging deadly flak and Messerschmitts in the skies over Hitler's fortress Europe. Then there was my neighbor, who passed away a few years ago, a retired school principal, who was one of the battling bastards of Raton. He survived the Bataan death march and prison camps in Japan, almost being killed by our own bombers while being forced to work the mines in Japan. I have another friend who is also a retired school principal, who was a Marine at the Chosin Reservoir in the Korean War, where they had to lash the dead bodies to the trucks and tanks as the ground was too frozen to bury them. Then there is the godfather of my two children, who was a young man in the Special Forces in Vietnam. One day on patrol, his unit was ambushed, and he had the cold steel of a Viet Cong bayonet thrust into his gut. He used to greet you with a positive attitude, an outgoing manner at the counter at the Raton post office. There was my friend Richard Rocco, who broke his back in a crash when his chopper was shot down in Vietnam. With a broken back, he pulled several of his men to safety and continued to inspire and direct fire on the enemy, winning a Congressional Medal of Honor. He passed away a few years ago of cancer caused by Agent Orange. Another acquaintance of mine was a candidate for president. He had his aircraft shot down over North Vietnam and spent 5.5 years in a prisoner of war camp being tortured and mistreated. That is why his arms and shoulders don't work to this very day. Yet he still puts his country first. There was a deputy sheriff who was a Marine in Lebanon when the barracks were blown up by terrorists. He served the community and the county. The state police officer, who with the members of the Raton National Guard unit, served in Iraq and now has returned to keep the highways of our state safe. Veterans, they are everywhere, in every walk of life. Some are active in their communities, others are more solitary and like to be out of the picture. Each has paid a price for our freedom, and as a nation, we owe them a debt that can never be repaid. Many of our veterans have to learn to adapt with artificial limbs. Others are bound to wheelchairs. Others are blind. And these are the ones who have physical wounds. Many are also carrying a different kind of wound, wounds of the mind, suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. We cannot let our nation forget these heroes. Did you know that one veteran commits suicide every 65 minutes in this country? They all must be given the best care the VA can provide. We must acknowledge the families of these men and women and the sacrifices they have made also. Having to continue to live while your loved one is in harm's way is also a price of freedom. Having to be both parents at the same time taking much courage and determination, they also deserve our gratitude. Let us not forget the POW MIAs and their families as well. We must continue to keep our elected officials' feet to the fire on this issue, seeking the fullest accounting or return of these individuals and closure for their families. Being a veteran, I have a deep appreciation for those men and women who decided to put on the uniform and serve in our armed forces. We must never forget that these people are putting their lives on hold for a time to serve the rest of us. And in the case of those who paid the ultimate sacrifice, they put 2 lives on hold. The one they had before they joined the service, and the one they would have had they lived. I know that Veterans Day is a national holiday, but it saddens me that our schools do not take the day off to honor the veterans, choosing instead to trade it for a day after Thanksgiving or another day. I think we are doing a real injustice to our youth by not having them off to recognize the sacrifice of our nation's veterans. I know it's a cliche, but I feel every day should be Veterans Day. But without their sacrifice, we would not be able to enjoy all the freedom and liberty that we have in this great nation of ours. Nowadays, many celebrities are considered heroes to our youth. Kobe Bryant, A-Rod, Tony Romo, to name a few. The sad thing is, there is probably a real hero sitting across the table from them. Someone who sacrificed for freedom and who knows well the real price of freedom. A veteran, someone who should be held in celebrity status, but who never seeks it. Thank you for inviting me to speak about Veterans Day. Everyone knows someone that is a veteran. Please take a moment to walk up to them and say, thank you for what they have done. May God bless our veterans and their families, and may God bless America.